Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest show on earth. It's the Take Your Shot podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gitman, and we are just rolling through things here on this marvelous and once again, potentially last day of the NBA season Monday as the Dallas Mavericks somehow, in what is dominant fashion, 122 to 84, defeat the Boston Celtics to force a game 5 and extend the NBA Finals. And we will find out tonight on ABC 8:30 prime time if the Boston Celtics will get banner number 18 or if we are going back to Dallas for a game 6 where this series could get very interesting fast. But let's talk about this game. Game 4, what the Mavericks did in order to really extend this series. And when you're looking at the playing cards, you're looking at the scenarios that could come about in a game 4 situation based off how the series was going. You could see Boston winning in a close one. You could see Boston just blowing them out because Dallas just gave up. You could see Dallas winning in a close one. But when you're looking at the possibilities, I don't think anyone saw the Mavericks winning by 38 points. 38, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest margin of victory in over 30 years in the NBA Finals. And they were up, the Dallas Mavericks, by 48 points. It was almost a 50-point game in an NBA Finals. And the team that was up almost 50 was the team actually down 3-0. In the NBA, this was unexpected. What I always say about basketball and the NBA, you have to expect the unexpected, and that is exactly what happened in this game with the Dallas Mavericks just cruising through this game and having no worries about forcing a game 5 and extending the series. So, we're going to talk about what Dallas did great, what the Celtics didn't do, and then we're going to see if Dallas can extend the series. That's what we're going to do today. And then there'll be a little bit of a free agency, sort of a little bit of a, I don't know, what do you call it? A flirting, tampering in the middle of all of that. And you'll understand when we get to that. But let's talk first about what the Dallas Mavericks did great. Number one, the Dallas Mavericks attacked the paint early. The Dallas Mavericks did this in game 3 as well in the first quarter. Mavericks really attacked the paint. It was working, especially without Porzingis, because again, Kristaps Porzingis, for those of you who don't know, out game 3 once again, out for game 4. Well, he wasn't really out for game 4. He was called available in special cases. If necessary, he would play, but I think the vibe was with Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics that he was not going to play, and that's exactly what happened, especially with the blowout. They didn't really need him. So Porzingis was once again essentially out of the lineup, and the Dallas Mavericks, again, attacked the paint early. But the problem was why they weren't successful in game 3 was they went away from it. They started settling with some jump shots, with the mid-range, not really continuing their attack to the paint. But this game was completely different. The Dallas Mavericks consistently, from wire to wire, first to fourth, attacked the paint. And when you don't have a Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup, someone who is 7'3", someone who really was a huge reason in why the Celtics are where they are today. The Celtics are a 64-win team because of Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis, we know how impactful he has been on offense, especially with the pick and pop and extending the defense out. But defensively, he is just a big body at the rim. And we all love Al Horford and even what Xavier Tillman has done for the Boston Celtics when Porzingis has been out. Those two are decent players. But at the end of the day, Al Horford is 38 years old. Xavier Tillman, young, and both of them are just not at the height and not necessarily at the level of impact that Kristaps Porzingis brings defensively. And when you're 7'3" and you're on the other team and you see that 7'3" guy and you're about to attack the rim, you're thinking, you're not thinking going to the rim anymore. You're hesitating going to the rim now because you see that big body in Kristaps Porzingis there. So the fact that that rim opened up and the Dallas Mavericks took advantage of that and did what they were supposed to do and find every little way they could win this game shows that they are in the fight. They are not giving up just because they are down 3-0 and just because history said that it is impossible for them to win this series. That just shows the fight and the resiliency of the Dallas Mavericks right there. And really everybody got involved in attacking the paint, whether that was Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, even the role players. Like you could say a Josh Green attacked the paint. You could say even um, Derrick Jones Jr. attacked the paint. The lob threat was working with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford because the Dallas Mavericks took advantage of the matchup. Because again, Al Horford's not as quick, not as versatile, and not as tall as Kristaps Porzingis. Neither is Xavier Tillman. Even though they tried to stand their ground, when Dallas attacked the paint, it completely worked. And in this game, the Dallas Mavericks essentially outscored the Boston Celtics 54-24, if I'm not mistaken, from the paint. I don't know the exact number from there, but it was definitely a big margin. And the Mavericks, if I'm not mistaken, in the first quarter had like half of those in the first. And of course, after halfway through the third quarter, it was essentially garbage time. So the Mavericks did their job in that department, and it got them off going to a great start, going up 13 in the fourth quarter. And obviously, we know the rest of the story. And that is a huge reason on why Dallas wins, because in the finals, yes, Porzingis is out, and now it sort of evens the playing field a little bit. Now it gives Dallas something that they really relied upon heavily in the earlier rounds. What did the Mavericks do against Zubac? They pushed him, they attacked the paint on him. The Mavericks attacked the paint against Chet Holmgren. The Mavericks attacked the paint against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But Porzingis is a different beast. Porzingis is a big, bulky, physical, big man. He is not skinny where you can just go up on him. He will block, he will contest. This is a much different player than the guys on the other team. And Dallas has really relied to score on the paint, and that was taken away from them. And they had to rely on their role players hitting threes, which is something that they've done in previous rounds, but it's something that is necessarily not sustainable. So by giving them the option to attack the paint, it not only allows them to have easier shots, but it opens up that 3-point game to give better opportunities for the role guys, for Luka Doncic, for Kyrie to hit 3-point shots as well. So that is why attacking the paint is so beneficial for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I want to get to some individual players here. Let's start with Derek Lively here. Derek Lively, someone who has had a great, and when I mean great, I mean all rookie first team great. He was incredible all season long. He was the starting center for most of the season until they traded for Gafford at the trade deadline. Of course, now he's coming off the bench, but Gafford has really opened up the alley-oop, the pick and roll game for the Dallas Mavericks, and he has been someone who you could argue has been the third best player on this Mavericks playoff run. But in the first couple of games in the finals, Derek Lively was not that great. Derek Lively didn't look like he was ready for the moment. Derek Lively was sort of intimidated by Porzingis, intimidated by the Celtics, really standing out of the paint, not really doing his job. But now that Porzingis was out, he gained a little bit of confidence. He started the pick and roll game again with Luka and Kyrie. He was a big lob threat at the rim. He was more impactful defensively, and his presence was felt in a big way on both sides for the Mavericks. Because, yes, maybe PJ Washington can score the ball better than Derek Lively. Yes, maybe Derrick Jones Jr. is more athletic than Derek Lively. But the guy who impacts more, who shows their presence more, who is felt more on the basketball court, that is a guy like Derek Lively, someone who will give you every rebound, draw some fouls for you. That is a kind of toughness that it's not really talent wise. It's sort of you just have it or you don't. And Derek Lively has that toughness. And that's something that the Mavericks need a little bit. When you see a rookie leading the huddle, Derek Lively leading the huddle, telling Luka, Kyrie, come here, telling PJ Washington, Derrick Jones, come here. I have something to say to you. We need to do this better, yada, yada, yada. Leadership as a young player like that is something that is a rarity in basketball, a rarity in the NBA. And when he is showing leadership, it not only brings confidence to himself, it brings confidence to the Mavericks coaching staff to potentially play him more. It gives confidence to the Mavericks players like, oh, Derek Lively's lifting us up. Derek Lively's got this. We have the confidence as well because Lively is giving us that confidence. And the fact that he is really trying to control the tempers of Luka and Kyrie, and not necessarily bad tempers, just like the level, the attitude, the mindset. It's at like an all-time high. It's the NBA Finals. So the fact that they have someone out there to control that, neutralize that, tell them to settle down, help his team settle into the game a little bit as a rookie, with him not doing the same as well, making his impact not only as a leader but on the court as well. That is something that is a rarity in basketball, and the fact that he is doing that is something that not a lot of teams have the privilege of saying that they have a young leader who can help settle down the stars. And Derek Lively really, overall, this whole season, but especially game 4, especially as of late, has been a huge impact for the Mavericks all season long, and he could potentially be a big reason why the Mavericks come back, because if he continues to play well, open up that alley-oop threat a little bit, force potentially guys to cheat on Derek Lively, it can open up some shots for Luka and Kyrie as well. So Derek Lively has just this ability to not only make his presence felt, but allow others to get open as well. And he is a huge part in why the Mavericks could potentially make the series a little bit interesting. A huge part in why the Mavericks won game 4. So you got to give a lot of props to Derek Lively in that compartment. Now I want to talk about all the other role players on the roster. The Mavericks, something that we were begging for, especially me. I was begging for this the entire series. Mavericks role players, some of them, at least 2 to 3 of them, to just step up a little bit, ramp up the scoring, help Luka Doncic and Kyrie, especially when a guy like Kyrie Irving, he wasn't playing great games 1 and 2 of the NBA Finals. In fact, Kyrie Irving probably had his worst NBA Finals start to his career. It's just that simple. It's just being honest. And the problem was the Mavericks role players were no shows. Maybe one of them showed up, maybe a PJ Washington game here, maybe a Derrick Jones game 2 here, but there was not consistency off the bench. And it felt like Jason Kidd was getting nothing from his bench, nothing from his role guys. And he has tried a lot of players in this series, if I'm not mistaken. He's had at least 6 guys off the bench playing in this series. At least he's rolled with 11 before. I think he rolled with 11 in game 3 because he was just trying to find something, trying to find someone that could help this Mavericks offense, because Boston was playing such great defense and they were trying to keen in on Luka and Kyrie, and it gave opportunities for the role players to hit open threes. And Boston, clearly in the series, if you actually watch the series and you see how the games are going and you see the offensive sets of the Mavericks and the defensive sets of Boston, you're seeing that Boston is letting the role players beat them. They're saying, hey, we know you did this against the Clippers. We know you did this against the Thunder, and maybe even a little bit with Minnesota. But we want these role guys to beat us. We know the ability of Luka Doncic. We know the ability of Kyrie Irving. We want the role guys to beat us in a tough environment and prove it in the NBA Finals. And it's worked for Boston because the role players haven't been great. PJ Washington's gotten the open looks from 3. He hasn't hit them. Derrick Jones, same. All the other role guys have gotten their chances, and they haven't converted. But in this game, almost every role player stepped up for the Mavericks. And you could clearly see by the score, when role players step up for the Mavericks, the score is going to be different. Role players are huge. You look at the Celtics, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard. Those guys have had great games for the Celtics. Those guys have done their jobs, hit 3-pointers, helped bolster the Celtics offense a little bit, and even clamp down on defense and even try to sustain their matchups. They're not even getting beat. When the Mavericks are trying to expose those guys are standing their ground. Those two on the Celtics are doing their job, and we were asking the same for the Dallas Mavericks, and that's something that we didn't get until this game. And when you look at a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr., yes, he only played in garbage time, but 15 points, 5 of 7 from the 3-point line. And yes, as I mentioned, played in garbage time may not be that significant, but when you're looking at a series, when someone hasn't shot the ball that well, when Tim Hardaway Jr. has not been shooting the ball that particularly great, when you hit 5 threes, when you're on fire, it can get you going for the next game. It can get your shot going. And all someone needs is a couple of makes. They can get the confidence. They can get their stroke back. That is how basketball works. And maybe Jason Kidd needs to explore the possibility of playing Tim Hardaway Jr. early next game, especially how he finished game 4 with 5 3-pointers. If he can continue his great shooting from game 4 and give you some 3-point shots, you got to put him in the game. And it may be insignificant because it was in garbage time, but if you can get someone shot, that is something that's great. So not only have the role players going to make an impact for this game, but now it gives you the confidence that the role players could make an impact for game 5, like Tim Hardaway Jr. getting his jump shot back. That is huge for the Dallas Mavericks because we know Tim Hardaway Jr.'s ability. He was the 3rd leading scorer on the Mavericks this season. For those of you who don't really watch the Dallas Mavericks in the regular season, this guy is great. This guy has been great for years. He is a consistent scorer, someone who can get you 20 points on any given night. And he really was struggling this postseason. He got benched, and it made sense because he was struggling. Other guys like Jaden Hardy and Josh Green were stepping up, and Tim Hardaway was struggling, and Jason Kidd had to make the move. But now, maybe if Tim Hardaway can get his shot back, that would just be extra help for the Mavericks because the Mavericks, other than this game 4, have not scored over 100 points. And you're going to need all the offense you can possibly have, considering Boston's great offense and considering their great defense as well. You're going to need as many options as possible to beat that elite level defense in the Celtics. They have 2 great perimeter defenders guarding Luka and Kyrie. You are going to need other players to step up, and Tim Hardaway could potentially be that in a game 5 situation. Then you also look at a guy like Dante Exum, someone who also made his mark on the Dallas Mavericks this season. Really, in the second half of the season, they signed him. He used to play with Utah, out of the league for a couple of years, got signed, was starting for a little bit. He was a huge reason on why the Dallas Mavericks sort of didn't fall off a cliff, because there was one point halfway through the season where the Mavericks were looking a little shaky. They were in the 8th spot. They were in the play-in spot, and the Mavericks were just not in the position that they wanted to be. And Dante Exum started putting up 15 points a game, started putting up like 10 and 5 assists a game. That is something that was really shocking to the Mavericks, that this guy who we just signed out of the league for a couple of years, making his mark on our franchise immediately, and he, just like Tim Hardaway Jr., got benched in this NBA Finals, and he got an opportunity in the second quarter, and if I'm not mistaken, the Celtics are trying to make a little bit of a push to come back, and then Dante Exum scores 5 straight points. Dante Exum scores 8 out of the next 10 points. That is something that you need from your role players, little spurts like that, because sometimes Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are not going to shoot great. They didn't shoot great in game 3, and the role players, if they stepped up, they probably would have won. Sometimes those shots aren't going to go in, and you're going to need other guys who have the ability to hit shots. And when you look at guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dante Exum, 2 guys who you've seen score at a decent level for you this season, find their shot, that's something you can bring to for the next game, which is a great sign for the Dallas Mavericks. And then you look at really the other guys. It wasn't like nobody was a no-show. Even Max Kleba got a couple shots going, 5 points. Derek Lively, as I mentioned, had a great game with 11. Exum, as I mentioned, 10 points. Josh Green had a 3. Daniel Gafford had 7. And what was great about the role player stepping up was PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., they didn't have great games. PJ Washington had 6. Derek Jones Jr. had 5. Yes, they played minimal time. Yes, they played minimal minutes. But when you see players stepping up when other players are not having good games, that's something that is a positive thing. That's something that is a great thing, and you can bring that to the next game. And this is just a very good sign for the Dallas Mavericks overall. And then something that I noticed as well in this game was the Mavericks won the rebounding battle 52-31. This was an absolute domination on the boards. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Derek Lively had double digit. Yeah, he had 12 rebounds. I'm looking at the box score right now. Derek Lively had 12 rebounds. And it was really everybody getting some boards for the Dallas Mavericks. And when you can get rebounds, save second chance opportunities from the Celtics, because we know how elite the Celtics are. When you give the Celtics a second chance, I mean, they're most likely going to score because that's how elite they are. and then you're getting 13 offensive rebounds compared to the Celtics getting 4 offensive rebounds, you're giving yourself more second chance opportunities as well. And when you can give yourself second chance opportunities, considering you have to match Boston's elite level offense, that is huge. A key for the Mavericks in the series. I said it earlier before the series started, and I will say it again. The Mavericks have to win the rebounding battle. They have to give themselves the most opportunities to score while giving the Celtics the least opportunity to score. They need to be taking more shot attempts per game. They have to. They have to force more turnovers. They have to steal possessions. They have to save possessions. And rebounding is a huge aspect of that. Dallas needs to maximize their opportunities, and if they continue rebounding with guys like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, who they brought in, PJ Washington, Derek Jones grabbing up for some boards, that can really help you save some possessions. And every single point matters in an NBA Finals. Look, if the Dallas Mavericks would have won the rebounding battle in Game 3 and Game 2, they would have won both games. Just plain and simple. They didn't win it. They did not win it because Al Horford, Xavier Tillman, Jason Tatum, those guys wanted it more on the glass. You have to be physical. You have to be aggressive on the glass. You're going to have to give it your all in these next 3 games. And you may not even get 3 games. You're going to have to give it your all each and every single game you get, because that is your best chance at winning. You have to be the team that wants it more. You have to be the team that hustles, gets the loose balls, gets the rebounds, forces the turnovers. That has to be the Dallas Mavericks to win the NBA Finals. So the fact that they won the boards by a huge amount is something that is a big positive for the Mavericks in this game. Now, I do want to talk about Kyrie and Luka's performances for a little bit here. Not really a lot, because honestly, they didn't really need the great performances because it was a blowout anyway. But Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic playing great together. Again, that is huge. Those two need to play good together. There's no questions asked. Those two have to play great at the same time in order for them to win even another game in this series. And Kyrie's gotten his shot back a little bit. He 10 for 18, didn't really shoot well from 3, but he got to the rim because Porzingis was out. That's something Kyrie Irving can do great, especially with his dribbling, especially with his ball handling. Luka, once again, being great, if I'm not mistaken, had a huge first quarter, settled it down a little bit. Those two were game highs of plus 30 and plus 28 in the plus minus category. Those two need to play great, and that it's a good sign that they were both great in this game, and they're going to have to continue that for Game 5 if they want to stay in this series. And then finally, the defense. The defense for Dallas, much better. Much, much better in this game compared to the rest of the series. You look at a guy like Luka Doncic, someone who clearly we've had questions about on defense. We've had questions about his hustle, about his really willingness to actually play defense overall in the entire season. Game 3, of course, we saw a lot of complaining, not getting back, not hustling. We saw a lot of that, and we were wondering, does Luka Doncic really want this? Does Luka Doncic really want to win some of these games? And now that we saw that, the questions were raised. Is Luka ready for the moment yet? Is Luka ready to win an NBA title yet? He has to play great defense while being, of course, his historically elite offensive self. He needs to play some decent defense because the Celtics know you're going to go at Luka Doncic. The Celtics are going to attack Luka. They're going to attack a guy like Kyrie, not only because those two are not the best defenders, but you want to draw fouls on them. You want to get them out of the game. And Luka and Kyrie, especially Luka, has to stand his ground and has to play great defense. And those guys, along with the rest of the Mavericks roster, played great defense in this game. Yes, the Boston Celtics didn't shoot that great. It wasn't the best offensive game, struggling from the three-point line. But the contests, the closeouts, much better in this game. The individual one-on-one defense, much better in this game. And they're going to have to continue all of this. I'm saying, they're going to have to sustain all of this because the Celtics are such a tough opponent. And now they're going back to Boston. Yes, they haven't been the greatest playoff team at home, but they're going back to a crowd that is hungry for a title and a crowd that could potentially see their team close it out on their home floor. Dallas is going to have to play a perfect game just like they did here in order to win. Because trust me, the Celtics are not going to shoot this horrific once again. They are not. This is not going to happen. The Mavericks are going to have to sustain what they are doing now in order to win the series. This is why I'm saying all of that. Yes, I'm saying yes, it's maybe a little bit ridiculous saying sustain everything, continue to be perfect. But at the end of the day, if you want to beat the Celtics, you have to be near perfect. That's just how it works. There's no questions asked. They have to be near perfect. And I really liked what I saw from game 4. And it's something that I believe the Mavericks could potentially sustain and make a game 5 and potentially make this rest of the series very interesting. And now I want to talk about the Celtics. Let's talk about the Boston Celtics here. They were a no-show. So I forgot who said it, but somebody, it was Jason Kidd. Dallas, yeah, Jason Kidd said it. Jason Kidd said Dallas was playing for their season, and the Boston Celtics were playing for a trophy. That's how it worked. That's exactly how this game worked, and that's exactly how this game operated. Because the Boston Celtics, after the first quarter, looked out of it. They looked done. They looked like they didn't want to play. They just looked like, let's not get this job done. Let's just wait till home. That is what it looked like. And yes, of course, you want to win the title at home, but at the end of the day, you want to take advantage of every single game possible and every single opportunity, because now, let's just say Dallas wins game 5. This series could get interesting fast. You have to take advantage of every opportunity you get, and you basically gave up after the first quarter. When the Mavericks were up by 17, you were like, oh, we're not coming back. Let's just call it, pack it. Let's just go back to Boston and win it there. That is not the mentality of a championship team. You want to be in the fight every single game. And you should especially see this from the Boston Celtics, because we saw what they did last season when they were down 3-0, stayed in the fight and forced a game 7. Especially from them, this is something that they know could happen. They know a series could get interesting even though a team is up 3-0. So why are they just giving up? Why did they just not show up? It makes no sense to me, and it does not show me a championship level mentality, a championship level team. You have to go in there saying, I want this game. We need to end it here. We need to take every single opportunity possible. Yes, it's a 3-game cushion, but then that cushion gets shorter each and every single game. Now it's only a 2-game cushion. You have to take advantage of every single opportunity, and the Celtics were just no-shows, and that is something that I did not like from the Boston Celtics. At least make it a competitive game here. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Porzingis, once again, not really available to play in this game. Of course, Porzingis, huge impact for this game, huge impact for the series. Of course, it's not really an excuse to why they didn't show up, but again, Porzingis has arguably been their third most impactful player this season, really has been someone who's helped them defensively, being a presence in the paint, open them up offensively with the pick and pop. Porzingis has been a huge player for the Celtics, and maybe you can cut them a little slack there. I know Porzingis is trying to do everything he can to play in Game 5. That is what the reports say. I don't know if Joe Mazzulla is going to do it. I don't know if the Celtics training staff are going to do it, because this is a very serious left leg injury, and you still have a 2-game cushion in the NBA Finals. Maybe if it gets to 1 game and you go back to Dallas, you consider it, but maybe for now, Porzingis may not play. So yes, you got to give them a little bit of leeway for that, but again, they really shouldn't be necessarily giving up on a game. And one thing that I did like about the Celtics, only one player in particular, Jason Tatum, once again got off to a great start. Remember, he struggled the first 2 games of the NBA Finals, really a no-show for those first 2 games, struggling shooting once again, and I really like, even though they lost out by a lot, Jason Tatum getting off to a fast start, because Jason Tatum's going to have one of these great games. You're going to have to find a way to close out the Mavericks, because once again, in any series, no matter what the series is, the hardest game is the closeout game. That is the hardest game, because the team is desperate. The team on the other side is playing for their season. You're going to have to play a great game in order to beat the team on the other side, no matter what team it is, because this is the playoffs, baby. These are elite NBA teams. Whether you're the 8 seed, you're the 5 seed, these are teams that do not want to go out without a fight. These are elite teams. You're going to have to play great basketball, and that may require Jason Tatum to be great, as he wasn't in the first 2 games in this series. He played great in game 3, huge reason why they won, and he was really the only one who did a lot for the Celtics in this game, really the only one who was scoring a little bit. Yes, they lost by a lot, but Tatum had 15 points. Tatum was a very positive and a very influential part on the Celtics, and not only in game 3, but to start this game as well. Of course, they benched their starters. Tatum only got 27 minutes in this game, which is why he didn't score many more points. But for when he played, Tatum was doing exactly what he needed to do: attack the basket, get to the basket, not always rely on the 3-point shot, which he does heavily. This is a very good sign for the Celtics, especially now that they're going back home, and Tatum has continued to play great these past 2 games. Now for the bad parts. The Celtics, they really shot horrifically. And this is Missoula ball. You're going to have to live and die with a 3-point shot. That's what Joe Mazzulla does. They shoot a lot of threes. They shoot more threes than 2-point shots. They were 14 of 41 from the 3-point line, 34%. Not horrific, but when you look at the garbage time, when they actually made some of their 3-point shots, I would say their real percentage is around like 20 to 25% in this game. That's pretty bad. And you're going to have to live and die by the 3. And if your 3-point shots are not going in for the Celtics, the way Joe Mazzulla coaches, the way Joe Mazzulla plays, you're not going to win a basketball game. You're really not. And that's the question we have with the Celtics. Can they sustain and rely on their 3-point shot all season long? Is it going to continue to drop? Is it going to continue to fall? Yeah, so far it's been a yes, but in this game, it was a no. It was a disaster. Game 2, it wasn't so great either, but they still somehow found a way to win. But game 1 and game 3, it was great. The question is, are the Celtics going to not show up from the 3-point line in 3 games in a row? I don't see that happening. I think the Celtics will have eventually one good shooting game, but it still ponders the question: what if they don't have a great shooting game 5? What if they don't again in game 6? You don't know, and you're really banking on, if you're a Celtics fan, that 3-point shot. That's really all you're banking on for the Celtics. Just hit a couple threes. Give me some Derek White threes. Give me 1 or 2 Sam Hauser threes. Give me a Pritchard 3. Give me a couple of Jaylen Brown and Tatum 3. Like that's all the Celtics do. They shoot threes. You're going to have to live and die by it. In this game, the Celtics died, and they died really, really disastrous by it. And when I look at the numbers, Tatum was 1 for 4. Derek White was 2 for 8. Jaylen Brown was 1 for 5. Sam Hauser was actually the only one who hit some threes. He was 4 of 6, most of them being in garbage time. Peyton Pritchard was 1 for 6. It was a disaster from the 3-point line. It just was. And that's Missoula ball, and you're going to have to live with it if you're the Boston Celtics, because that's just how they play. And then I want to get to Jrue Holiday for a little bit. Jrue Holiday, great game 1 and game 2. Nearly perfect game 1 and game 2. You could have made the case 5 to 6 days ago that Jrue Holiday could have been the Finals MVP. That is how great Jrue Holiday was playing. Of course, now that's out of the conversation, because Jrue Holiday, game 3 and game 4, not really playing that great, struggling again offensively. And that's something that, especially with Porzingis not being 100%, something that the Celtics had to rely on a little bit. Holiday stepping up offensively, because we saw his ability in Milwaukee. We saw his ability as the second option with the Milwaukee Bucks. We know that Jrue Holiday can bring offense to the table, and eventually the Celtics are going to need one of these Jrue Holiday offensive games. Considering that Porzingis is not 100%, Porzingis is out of the lineup, they're going to need somebody else to make up Porzingis's offensive ability, offensive efficiency. They're going to need that, whether that's from Jrue Holiday or Derek White. Yes, Derek White has been pretty consistent. Of course, he had a bad game this one, but for most of the finals, he's been a 12 to 15 point per game scorer. They're going to need either him to get 10 more points, give you a 25-point game. You're going to need one of those great Jrue Holiday games. You're going to need something from one of those two to make up Porzingis' offensive efficiency. And to me, Holiday really struggling from the field. Derek White really not good in this game. One of those two are going to have to step up. That is going to be a key for the Celtics in order to win Game 5. Because if those two have bad performances with Porzingis out, you just can't rely on Tatum and Brown. The reason why the Celtics are so great is not because of Tatum and Brown. We've seen Tatum and Brown with no roster. They're a conference finals team, but a NBA champion, that those two, why they would win the NBA championship is because they have such a great roster around them. And Drew Holiday and Derek White are a major part of that. And one of them has got to have to make up Porzingis' efficiency. And obviously, none of them did it in this game. And that is part of the reason why you see this major result on the scoreboard, a 38-point game, down by 48 at one point. Really just a absolute disaster for the Celtics. Now, again, just a really bad game for Boston. They had some bad fouls. They had some bad turnovers. Am I concerned? We will get into that in a little bit. It's a little bit concerning, yet they still have a 2-game cushion, yet they still have 3 opportunities to close it out. We will see what they do, and we will see how they respond. Now, before we get into the chances for Dallas to force a Game 6, I want to talk about something that I saw on NBA Countdown. Joel Embiid, for some reason, I don't know why, joined the NBA Countdown crew, and you know who was on that NBA Countdown crew for that game? Paul George. Paul George was on the NBA Countdown crew for that game. And Joel Embiid, according to reports, had no idea that Paul George was on the NBA Countdown crew. And when he was told that Paul George was on the NBA Countdown crew, he was like, oh, can I join? Can I join? Can I come up? Why would Joel Embiid do that? Why would Joel Embiid want to be on national TV with media guys? He wouldn't want that. Why is he going up there? He's not going up there for the media guys. He's not going up there for the publicity. He's going up there because Paul George is sitting right there next to him, next to the chair. And what does he do? He starts going. He starts giving the little the eyes, the little the little eyes, the little bit of, winking, a little bit of, hey, Paul, this is Joel, we got the money, yeah. That was happening. And then the guys in NBA Countdown are like, Joel Embiid, you need a missing piece. You need a missing piece. Clearly, Paul George feels uncomfortable in this situation, but we know what Joel Embiid is trying to do in this situation. We know what Joel Embiid is trying to do. We know Embiid's strategy here. We're not stupid. Nobody's stupid. Clearly, he's side-eyeing and winking for a reason. Clearly, he's going on that set for a reason. It's not to talk to Stephen A. Smith. It's not to talk to Malika Andrews. No, it's to try to get Paul George to Philadelphia. And you know what? By looking at Paul George's body language, by looking at Paul George's face, there's something about him really not having a problem with it. And maybe this is something, maybe this is nothing, maybe this is everything. We don't know. But it was very interesting to me to why Joel Embiid did that. Very interesting. Clearly, Joel Embiid thinks that Paul George could be a potential missing piece for the Philadelphia 76ers. He said it on NBA Countdown. He hates the Boston Celtics. He does not like the Boston Celtics winning a title. He knows that the rest of the East was injured, that Boston got this easy path. He knows all of that because he was a huge part of that. He was injured himself. So Embiid knows exactly what he is doing. He does. And I think Paul George personally would be a great fit on the 76ers. I think he would really be great surrounding Tyrese Maxey, surrounding Joel Embiid, being that perfect 3 guy. But at the end, the questions are, who else can you sign? How much money do you have left? Can you really retain Kelly Oubre Jr.? Can you retain Tobias Harris? Can you retain a guy like Kyle Lowry? Can you? Because you're going to give all the money to Paul George. How many guys can you really contain? Does depth matter more than superstardom? Philly's going to have to make that decision. And I really do think Paul George is going to sign with the Sixers. I really do. We will talk about that in an offseason video after the NBA Finals are over. But I really do think that Paul George is going to Philadelphia. There's contract disputes with the Clippers. Of course, he's been playing with Kawhi Leonard injured for years now and years. Nothing's really going right with the Clippers. I think Paul George wants a change, and I think signing with Philadelphia gives that team a very decent shot at beating the Celtics next year. I really do. I think it's destined. I think it's ultimately going to happen. But the fact that Joel Embiid did that just confirms exactly what I think. He knows what he's doing. Paul George didn't have a problem with it. None of that happened. It might happen. Don't be surprised when Paul George signs that paper to join the Philadelphia 76ers. Just don't be, because I won't be. Now let's talk about the chances that Dallas has to force a game 6. Again, the way they do this, they got to be perfect. They have to be themselves. How did the Mavericks get here? How did the Mavericks find their way to the NBA Finals? How did the Mavericks get through a wild, and much more difficult conference in the West? It's because of their role guys. Not only were Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic playing at an elite level, which is what they've been doing the past 2 games together, it's been the role guys. It's been PJ Washington. It's been Derek Jones Jr. It's been somebody off the bench like a Dante Exum, a Josh Green, a Jaden Hardy, a Tim Hardaway Jr. It's been those guys, and that's what they got in game 4, and they're going to need to continue it because, trust me, I said it a couple of minutes ago, the Celtics will not shoot as bad as they did in game 4. It is not happening. We all know that. Dallas is going to have a great game. And it might be Luka Doncic getting 50, but that's most likely not going to be the best scenario. It may not be the most possible scenario. That scenario is probably not likely because you look at guys like Drew Holiday, like Derek White. It's really hard to score 50 points on them. It's not easy. Those two are elite defenders. So you're going to have to get some guys to help out. That's how Dallas wins this game. They have to continue that. They also have to play great defense. They played great defense in game 4. They forced Boston to their lowest scoring point total in the first half since the Joe Mazzulla era. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. Let me just confirm that before I say anything that's wrong. Yes, 35 points, the lowest scoring first half of the Boston Celtics in the Joe Mazzulla era. That's what the Dallas Mavericks did. They contested better. They didn't have stupid fouls. They were more disciplined, including the stars and Luka Doncic and Kyrie. They are going to have to continue that. And then, finally, Luka and Kyrie have to play great together. They both have to be great. You can't have one be great, one not. Game 3, Kyrie was great, Luka wasn't. Game 2, Luka was great, Kyrie wasn't. Game 1, Luka was great, Kyrie wasn't. Game 4, they were both great. They won by 38. You see what I'm saying here? Both need to be great. This is your season. Those two have taken you here. Yes, I said the role players have been a big part, but at the end of the day, this is a superstar league. Superstars are the ones who win the NBA Finals. And those two bad boys in Dallas are superstars. And those two will take you to the promised land. Those two could give you guys history, could make the Dallas Mavericks historical. I believe that. I really, really do. Those two guys are going to take you somewhere. It's going to be difficult because we know Boston's going to come out with a vengeance. They are going to be hungry. They are going to want to close it out because trust me, when you get to the game 6, when you're down 3-0, and the team that's down 3-0 wins 2 games, the pressure is at an all-time high for the Celtics. If the Celtics lose this game, all the pressure, and when I mean all the pressure, I mean every single atom, every single little particle will be on the Boston Celtics. Dallas is playing free now. Dallas is playing loose. There's no pressure on Dallas. There will be no pressure on Dallas for the rest of the series. For Boston, each and every single loss, if there continues to be losses, that pressure will just keep on ticking up exponentially. the pressure will rise fast for the Celtics. The Celtics want to get it done. This is their chance. They are at home. This is game 5. You're up 3-1. You do not want to go back to Dallas. You just want to stay home and celebrate. You really do. This really is a huge game for the Celtics. I really do think that. Because if Boston loses this game, I will say it, this series may get very, very interesting. I'm not going to call it yet. I would have to think about it. But if Dallas were to win this game, go into Boston, continue what they did in game 4 and win this game, you never know what I might say. You never know what the Dallas Mavericks could do, because then they will be halfway to history. So let me give you my pick. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. But you know what? I picked Boston to get it done in game 4. I did. And I thought they would, because usually when you're down 3-0, it's over and you're really demotivated to do anything. But Dallas showed a lot of fight. Dallas showed a lot of grit. They showed toughness, and I was wrong. And I should have picked Dallas, yes. But this game, you know what? I'm going to do it. This series is going to get interesting. And it will get interesting very fast, because I'm taking the Dallas Mavericks. The Boston Celtics will have to wait. The Mavericks, behind a Luka legendary performance. I think this will be a Luka Doncic game. I do. He may get 50. He may get 40. This will be a Luka game. Kyrie will play great as well. A role player will step up. But I think Dallas will come with the fight. They will come with the urgency. And they will go in there and win the game. I do. And if that were to happen, like I think it will, this series will get very, very interesting very fast. So the Boston Celtics have to be very, very careful when approaching this game 5. They really do, because they should and they must close it out at home tonight. And that is all the time I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed going over game 4, previewing a little bit of game 5, and talking some Philadelphia 76ers for a couple of minutes. Remember to please like and subscribe on YouTube. It would mean a lot for me. I know we've gotten a couple more subscribers. It's been a great week for me. Continue that positivity. Continue liking my content. It really means a lot to me. Remember, if you want more of me, follow me on Instagram at take_your_shot_podcast_ and tell me how you have taken your shots on my takes today. That is all my shots for the day. I will see you on Wednesday, no matter what, whether that is recapping game 5 and previewing game 6 or discussing why the Boston Celtics won the NBA title. We don't know what will happen, but one of those will happen. We will see you Wednesday, no matter what. Enjoy game 5, because I expect it to be a great one. And Dallas will not go out without a fight. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you.